When a courageous act sparks an unbreakable connection, two worlds collide in ways no one could have imagined. What begins as an act of defiance transforms into a journey of trust, courage, and destiny. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story and where you're watching from and why you're following this. Montana Territory, 1876. The harsh winter winds swept across the plains as Eleanor Parker huddled in the small trading post near the Blackfeet Reservation. At 22, she had come west as a teacher, only to find the frontier school closed upon her arrival. Now, with dwindling funds and nowhere to go, she worked for Mr. Finch, the surly trading post owner. "Girl, more supplies need stacking," Finch barked, his breath reeking of whiskey despite the early hour. "Yes, sir," Eleanor replied, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. Her hands were raw from the cold and labor, but she maintained her dignity. Eastern education had not prepared her for this harsh reality, but Eleanor was determined to survive. Outside, a commotion drew her attention. Through frost-covered windows, she saw a group of men dragging a young native woman across the muddy ground. The woman, clearly with child, was crying out as they struck her repeatedly. "What's happening?" Eleanor gasped, moving toward the door. Finch grabbed her arm. "Stay put. That's Blackfeet business." "They're beating a pregnant woman." Eleanor pulled away, her moral compass overriding caution. "Their ways ain't our ways," Finch warned. But Eleanor was already pushing through the door. The bitter cold hit her face as she stepped outside. 5 men surrounded the young woman who lay crumpled in the dirt, her dark hair matted with blood, her hands protectively covering her swollen belly. "Stop this at once!" Eleanor shouted, surprising herself with her boldness. The men turned, expressions ranging from amusement to contempt. One stepped forward, a white trader she recognized from previous visits. "This ain't your concern, miss." She dishonored her people. Eleanor positioned herself between them and the woman. "I don't care what your grievance is, she's with child." The confrontation might have escalated if not for the sudden approach of horses. A group of Blackfeet riders appeared, led by a commanding figure whose presence caused the attackers to step back. He dismounted with fluid grace, his tall frame wrapped in furs against the cold, his long black hair adorned with a single eagle feather. Even Eleanor, with her limited knowledge of tribal customs, recognized the markings of significant status. "What happens here?" His English was clear, his voice deep and authoritative. "Chief Running Wolf," one of the men stammered. "This woman has betrayed her husband with a white man. She carries the evidence of her shame." The chief's dark eyes surveyed the scene before settling on Eleanor, who refused to move from her protective stance. "And you interfere in Blackfeet matters?" he asked her. Eleanor straightened her spine. "I interfere when I see cruelty, regardless of who inflicts it." A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd. No one spoke to the chief this way. Running Wolf studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, to everyone's surprise, his mouth curved slightly. "What is your name, brave one?" "Eleanor Parker." He nodded slowly. "Eleanor Parker stands for what she believes. This is good." Turning to his men, he issued commands in their native tongue. 2 warriors gently lifted the injured woman onto a horse. The chief returned his attention to Eleanor. "You have heart of a Blackfeet woman, though your skin is pale as winter moon." His gaze was intense, assessing. "This woman will receive care, not punishment. Her child is innocent." Relief flooded Eleanor, but before she could respond, Running Wolf continued, his voice carrying so all could hear. "Remember this woman with fire hair. She has earned respect of Running Wolf." Jim then leaning closer so only she could hear. "You will be my queen," he declared quietly, "for a heart such as yours should not be wasted in this trading post." Without waiting for her response, he mounted his horse and departed with his men, leaving Eleanor speechless amid the whispers of onlookers. Later that evening, as she tended the trading post's fire, Finch approached her. "You've made a powerful friend or a dangerous enemy today, girl. Chief Running Wolf is no ordinary Blackfeet. They call him King among his people for the way he's united several bands. And he's just declared interest in you." Eleanor shook her head. "I was simply doing what was right." "Right and wrong look different across cultures," Finch said, surprisingly thoughtful. "But what you did took courage. That pregnant girl, Singing Bird, was accused of laying with a white cavalry officer. Truth is, she was forced. The officer's long gone, but she bears the consequence. Eleanor's stomach turned at the injustice. What will happen to her now? Hard to say, but Running Wolf's protection means something. He's educated, you know, spent years at a mission school before returning to lead his people. He walks between two worlds. As darkness fell over the Montana frontier, Eleanor found herself unable to forget the chief's penetrating gaze and his puzzling declaration. She had come west seeking purpose. Now, it seemed, purpose had found her in the most unexpected way. 2 weeks passed since the incident at the trading post. Eleanor continued her work, but whispers followed her everywhere. The white settlers regarded her with suspicion for interfering in Indian business, while occasional Blackfeet visitors watched her with newfound curiosity. One crisp morning, as frost painted delicate patterns on the windows, a young Blackfeet woman entered the trading post. She was perhaps 16, with bright eyes that darted nervously around the store before settling on Eleanor. "You Eleanor Parker?" she asked in halting English. "Yes," Eleanor replied, setting aside the inventory ledger. "I am Morning Star, Singing Bird's sister." The girl extended a small package wrapped in soft deerskin. "She sends thanks. Baby comes soon. She well now." Eleanor accepted the gift with genuine warmth. "I'm so glad to hear that. How is she being treated?" "Chief Running Wolf say no one touch her. She's safe." Morning Star hesitated, then added, "Chief sends message. He ask you come to winter camp for ceremony of thanks." Finch, who had been eavesdropping, interjected, "She ain't going to no Indian camp." Morning Star's eyes widened at his tone, but Eleanor raised her hand. "Mr. Finch, I can speak for myself." Turning back to Morning Star, she asked, "When is this ceremony?" 3 days. I come with warriors to escort." The girl paused. "Chief say you not prisoner, you guest of honor." After Morning Star departed, Finch confronted Eleanor. "You can't seriously be considering this, going willingly into their camp? Have you lost your mind?" "Mr. Finch, I've been here long enough to know the Blackfeet under Running Wolf have kept peace. Besides, I'm curious about Singing Bird's welfare." "Curious will get you killed, or worse," Finch muttered. "What do you mean, worse?" Eleanor challenged. The older man sighed heavily. "Listen, girl, Running Wolf ain't just offering friendship. You will be my queen ain't something said lightly. He's unmarried, powerful, takes what he wants." Eleanor felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You misunderstand. He was merely expressing gratitude." Finch laughed mirthlessly. "Been on this frontier 30 years. I don't misunderstand nothing about how men look at women they want, white or Indian." 3 days later, as promised, Morning Star returned with an escort of 4 warriors. Eleanor had spent the intervening time in careful preparation, packing modest gifts and reading what little information the trading post had about Blackfeet customs. "You not return," Finch predicted darkly as she mounted the horse provided for her. "I'll be back in 2 days," Eleanor assured him, though uncertainty fluttered in her stomach. The journey to the winter camp took several hours, winding through pine-covered hills until they reached a sheltered valley where dozens of lodges stood in ordered rows. Smoke from cooking fires rose into the clear blue sky, and children paused in their play to watch the newcomers. Eleanor was escorted to a large lodge at the center of camp. Outside, elaborate paintings depicted buffalo hunts and battle scenes. Morning Star indicated that Eleanor should wait while she announced their arrival. Moments later, Running Wolf emerged. Without his war paint and dressed in more ceremonial attire, he appeared both less intimidating and more regal. Intricate beadwork adorned his buckskin shirt, and his hair fell in 2 braids framing his strong features. "Eleanor Parker," he greeted her, his deep voice carrying across the suddenly quiet camp. "You honor us with your presence." Eleanor dismounted, conscious of countless eyes upon her. "Thank you for the invitation, Chief Running Wolf. Come." He gestured toward the lodge entrance. "Singing Bird awaits you." Inside, the lodge was warm and spacious. Furs lined the ground, and in the center a small fire cast dancing shadows on the walls. Singing Bird sat on a raised platform of sorts, her belly now enormous, her face healed but bearing faint scars from her ordeal. "Teacher woman," she said softly, using the name the Blackfeet had given Eleanor. You save me, save my child. Eleanor moved to sit beside her. I only did what anyone should have done. No, Running Wolf interrupted, taking a seat across from them. What you did, few would dare. My people value courage above all traits. Over the next hours, Eleanor was treated as an honored guest. She learned that Running Wolf had instituted changes among his people, blending traditional ways with new ideas learned during his education. He had established trade agreements with neighboring tribes and even some white settlements, earning him both respect and the nickname King from those who recognized his diplomatic skills. Why did you help Singing Bird? He asked her during the evening meal, his gaze direct and searching. Many white people see us as savages not worth protecting. Eleanor considered her answer carefully. I don't judge people by their origin or the color of their skin. That woman needed help. Nothing else mattered. Running Wolf nodded slowly. You speak truth, this is rare. After a thoughtful pause, he continued. You know what I said to you that day? Eleanor felt heat rise to her cheeks again. You said something about being your queen. Mr. Finch suggested, Ah, Running Wolf's expression hardened slightly. And what did Trader Finch suggest? That you meant it as a proposal of sorts? To her surprise, Running Wolf laughed, a rich sound that transformed his serious face. Finch understands little of our ways. I spoke of respect, not possession. Among my people, to be queen is to be advisor, leader of women, voice in council. Relief mingled with embarrassment as Eleanor realized her misunderstanding. I see. Then I'm honored by your words, though I'm not sure I deserve such status. You proved your worth already, he replied simply. Tomorrow you will see more of our ways, then decide if our worlds can truly meet. That night, as Eleanor slept in a lodge prepared for her, she reflected on the unexpected turn her life had taken. The frontier had revealed itself to be far more complex than the simple narratives of civilization versus savagery she had been taught. And Running Wolf was nothing like the Indian chief of dime novels. He was thoughtful, strategic, and possessed a vision for his people that challenged everything she thought she knew. Dawn broke with a spectacular display of colors painting the Montana sky. Eleanor awoke to the sounds of the camp coming to life. Women's voices as they began morning tasks, children's laughter, the nickering of horses. For a moment, disorientation swept over her before she remembered where she was. The Blackfeet winter camp, a guest of Chief Running Wolf. Morning Star appeared at the lodge entrance. Teacher woman, Chief asks if you join morning council. Eleanor quickly dressed in her warmest clothes, grateful she'd packed her sturdiest boots. The temperature had dropped overnight, and frost covered the ground as she followed Morning Star to a large circular lodge at the center of camp. Inside, a council fire burned and around it sat 12 men, tribal elders and warriors of high standing. Running Wolf occupied the position of honor, and beside him, to Eleanor's surprise, was an empty seat covered with a finely crafted buffalo robe. Eleanor Parker, Running Wolf addressed her formally. We discuss matters that affect future of our people. I ask you to listen, to observe. Your eyes see differently than ours. This can be valuable. Hesitantly, Eleanor took the offered seat. I'm honored, but I'm not sure how I can contribute to tribal matters. An elder across the fire, his face deeply lined with age, spoke in English for her benefit. Chief believes bridges must be built between our worlds. You are such a bridge. The council proceeded to discuss pressing issues, diminishing buffalo herds, encroaching white settlements, the government's broken promises regarding territory boundaries. Eleanor listened intently, struck by the thoughtful deliberation and respect shown even when opinions differed sharply. When discussion turned to a recent proposal from the Indian agent to relocate certain bands to smaller reservation lands, Running Wolf asked directly for her thoughts. I'm not qualified to advise on such matters, Eleanor began cautiously. Speak honestly, Running Wolf encouraged. No one here expects you to have all answers. Taking a deep breath, Eleanor considered carefully. From what I understand, the government's pattern has been to promise land, then reduce it when something valuable is discovered or when settlers pressure them. If this new boundary contains something they want, timber, minerals, fertile soil, I would be skeptical of their motives. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. The elder who had spoken earlier nodded. She sees clearly. What would you do if decision was yours? Running Wolf pressed. Eleanor thought for a moment. I would seek written guarantees, perhaps try to involve sympathetic newspapers or church organizations as witnesses, and I would ensure any agreement includes education and medical provisions that cannot be withdrawn. The council continued for another hour, with Eleanor occasionally invited to offer perspective. When it concluded, Running Wolf walked with her outside. You spoke well, he commented as they moved through the camp, without fear or false humility. I worry I overstepped, she admitted. These are your people's decisions, not mine. Running Wolf stopped, turning to face her. Eleanor Parker, understand this. Great leaders listen before deciding. I listen to elders, to warriors, to mothers, to children. Why not also to a wise woman who walks between worlds as I do? Their conversation was interrupted by urgent shouts. A rider galloped into camp, dismounting breathlessly before Running Wolf. Chief, white soldiers at North Ridge, many rifles. Eleanor felt her blood run cold. Cavalry here could mean many things, none of them good. Running Wolf's expression hardened. How many? 20, maybe more. Captain Burwell leads them. Eleanor recognized the name with a sinking feeling. Captain James Burwell had a reputation for harshness toward the tribes. Rumors of his brutality circulated even in the trading post. I know him, she said quietly to Running Wolf. He's dangerous. All men with guns are dangerous, he replied grimly. But more dangerous is fear that drives them. He issued quick commands to warriors nearby before turning back to Eleanor. You should return to your lodge. No, she said firmly. Let me speak with them. I'm a white woman, they won't shoot me. Perhaps I can learn their purpose here. Running Wolf studied her face. You would stand between my people and rifles again? I would stand for peace, if possible. Something shifted in his expression. Respect mingled with something deeper. Then we go together. At the northern edge of camp, warriors had already taken defensive positions. Women hurried children into lodges, and the atmosphere had transformed from peaceful mourning to tense anticipation. On the ridge above, blue-uniformed cavalry sat atop restless horses. Captain Burwell, a stocky man with a thick mustache and cold eyes, raised a spyglass in their direction. Running Wolf and Eleanor approached the base of the ridge, stopping in clear view. The chief raised his hand in the universal sign of peace. Captain Burwell, Eleanor called out, her voice carrying in the crisp air. I am Eleanor Parker from Finch's trading post. May we speak with you? Surprise registered on the captain's face. He conferred briefly with his lieutenant before directing his men to hold position. With 2 soldiers flanking him, he rode down to meet them. Miss Parker, he acknowledged her with barely concealed contempt. Strange company you're keeping these days. Chief Running Wolf and his people have been most hospitable, she replied evenly. May I ask your business here, Captain? Burwell's gaze shifted to Running Wolf. We're searching for deserters. 2 soldiers abandoned their post 3 days ago. Trail leads this direction. Running Wolf's expression remained impassive. No soldiers have entered our camp. My scouts would have reported. Indians hiding white deserters, Burwell said skeptically. Now there's a twist. Why would we shelter those who have harmed us? Running Wolf countered. Tension stretched between them until Eleanor intervened. Captain, I've been here since yesterday. I've seen no soldiers. Perhaps they passed through another valley. Burwell considered this, his eyes narrowing. Perhaps, or perhaps they're being hidden. He straightened in his saddle. I'll need to search the camp. No, Running Wolf said firmly. Your men with guns frighten our children. This is our winter home. You refusing a military order, Chief? Burwell's hand drifted toward his sidearm. Eleanor stepped forward. Captain, surely there's a compromise. What if you and your lieutenant, accompanied by myself and the chief, conduct a limited inspection? The rest of your men remain here. Both men stared at her, Running Wolf with surprise, Burwell with calculation. 2 soldiers could easily hide among so many lodges, the captain argued. Then let us prove they are not here, Eleanor countered. Show good faith, Captain. It will be remembered. After a tense moment, Burwell nodded curtly. You and the lieutenant. No weapons drawn unless necessary. The inspection proceeded with Eleanor walking between the 2 men, acutely aware of the fragile peace she had brokered. Children peeked fearfully from lodge entrances, and warriors watched with hands never far from weapons. They had nearly completed their circuit when shouting erupted from the ridge. One of Burwell's men was gesturing wildly toward the eastern edge of camp. "Sir, movement in the trees!" Burwell's hand immediately went to his pistol. Running Wolf tensed, and Eleanor feared the delicate situation would explode into violence. "Wait," she urged them both. "Let's see what it is before—" Her words were cut short as two bedraggled figures stumbled from the tree line, white men in tattered remnants of cavalry uniforms, one supporting the other, who appeared injured. "The deserters," Burwell muttered, satisfaction in his voice. Running Wolf's expression darkened. "They did not come from our camp." As the soldiers apprehended the deserters, Eleanor turned to Running Wolf. "You spoke truth. They were never here." "Truth is strongest weapon," he replied quietly. "Remember this, Eleanor Parker." After the cavalry departed with their prisoners, an unusual calm settled over the camp. That evening, a celebration was held. Not for the narrow avoidance of conflict, Running Wolf explained, but to honor Eleanor's courage. "Twice now, you stand between danger and my people," he told her as they sat by the council fire. "Today, you may have prevented blood from staining this ground." Eleanor shook her head modestly. "I only suggested what seemed reasonable." "Reason is rare when fear speaks," he replied. "You have gift for building bridges where others see only chasms." As the celebration continued around them, Running Wolf spoke more personally than before. He told her of his childhood, his years at the mission school where he'd learned English and mathematics alongside Christian teachings, and his return to lead his people through increasingly difficult times. "My father was great war chief," he explained. "When I returned from white man's school, many thought I was too changed, too corrupted by outside ways. They called me king as mockery because I spoke of new path forward." "And now?" Eleanor asked. A small smile touched his lips. "Now they call me king with respect, because I show them strength comes in many forms." As the night deepened and stars emerged in brilliant clarity above the camp, Eleanor found herself seeing Running Wolf not as the imposing chief who had declared she would be his queen, but as a man carrying immense responsibility, walking a precarious line between tradition and necessary change. "Tomorrow you return to Trading Post?" he asked eventually. "Yes. Mr. Finch will be wondering if you've scalped me by now." She attempted humor. Running Wolf didn't smile. "And after tomorrow? What path calls to Eleanor Parker?" The question caught her off guard. I don't know. The school position I came for is gone. My funds are limited. There is place for teacher here," he said quietly. "Our children need knowledge of both worlds." The offer hung between them, unexpected and momentous. Eleanor looked around at the camp, at the children watching her with curious eyes, at the women who had welcomed her despite her differences, at this man who saw value in building bridges rather than walls. "I will consider it," she said finally. "Truly." Running Wolf nodded, satisfaction in his eyes. "That is all I ask. For now." Spring arrived in the Montana Territory, melting snow and ice into rushing streams and coaxing tender green shoots from the earth. Eleanor stood outside the small cabin that now served as the Blackfeet Children's School, watching her students play during their midday break. 4 months had passed since her fateful decision to accept Running Wolf's offer. The transition hadn't been easy. Mr. Finch had predicted disaster. The Indian agent had objected strenuously, and many in the Blackfeet camp initially regarded her with suspicion. But Eleanor's determination had proven stronger than the obstacles. "Teacher woman." Little Fox, a 7-year-old boy with bright eyes and quick hands, ran up to her. "Look what I made." He proudly displayed a small book, its pages carefully sewn together, filled with drawings of animals alongside their names written in both English and Blackfeet. "This is wonderful, Little Fox," Eleanor praised, genuinely impressed by his progress. "Your writing has improved so much." The boy beamed before running off to show his friends. Eleanor smiled, remembering how frightened he'd been during those first lessons. Now 23 children attended her school regularly, learning to navigate between their traditional knowledge and the skills they would need in a changing world. "They flourish under your guidance." Eleanor turned to find Running Wolf approaching, his tall figure silhouetted against the afternoon sun. As always, his presence caused a flutter in her chest that she tried to ignore. "They're quick learners," she replied. especially when lessons incorporate their own culture. Running Wolf nodded approvingly. This is why you succeed where government teachers failed. You do not try to erase who they are. They walked together along the edge of the clearing. Over the months, a comfortable friendship had developed between them. Running Wolf regularly visited the school, sometimes teaching the children traditional stories or skills himself. Eleanor had learned much about Blackfeet ways, while he sought her counsel on matters involving interaction with white authorities. The agent visited yesterday while you were hunting, Eleanor mentioned. He brought news from Washington. Running Wolf's expression grew serious. What kind of news? Mixed. They've approved the medical supplies we requested, but they're still refusing to adjust the southern boundary as promised. He sighed, a rare display of frustration. Always they give with one hand, take with other. There's something else, Eleanor added. Captain Burwell has been reassigned. The new cavalry commander is Colonel Whitman. The agent says he's known for being fair-minded. Fair-minded by whose measure? Running Wolf asked skeptically. I've heard of him, actually. Before coming west, he worked with the Quakers on peaceful initiatives with eastern tribes. They reached a rocky outcropping overlooking the valley. Below, the Blackfeet camp spread in orderly rows, and beyond it the vast plains stretched toward distant mountains. It was Eleanor's favorite spot to think. Summer council approaches, Running Wolf said after a comfortable silence. Leaders from 7 bands will gather. I've heard the preparations are already underway. Yes. He turned to face her directly. Eleanor Parker, I wish you to address council. Surprise rippled through her. Me? But that's unprecedented. I'm not Blackfeet, not a tribal elder. You are teacher woman, he interrupted firmly. Your voice carries wisdom from both worlds. Council must hear this wisdom as we make decisions affecting our future. The honor of his request wasn't lost on her. What would you have me speak about? The children, what they learn, what they need, how we protect their future while honoring our past. His dark eyes held hers. No one sees this clearer than you. Later that evening, as Eleanor prepared for bed in her small cabin at the edge of camp, a soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door to find Singing Bird, now recovered from her ordeal, and caring for a healthy 3-month-old daughter. May I enter, teacher woman? She asked, cradling the sleeping infant. Of course. Eleanor welcomed her in, quickly lighting an additional lamp. Is everything all right? Singing Bird sat gracefully on the offered chair, adjusting her daughter in her arms. I come to thank you. Again. There's no need. There is need, Singing Bird insisted gently. My daughter lives because of you. I name her Eleanor, after brave woman who saved us. Emotion tightened Eleanor's throat. I'm deeply honored. Singing Bird smiled. Little Eleanor will grow strong. Perhaps one day she becomes teacher like you. She paused, then added with surprising directness. Chief Running Wolf honors you greatly. Eleanor felt her cheeks warm. He honors all who contribute to the welfare of the people. Not same way, Singing Bird said, a knowing look in her eyes. He walks with you, listens to you, waits. Waits? Eleanor echoed, confused. For you to see what is in his heart. Singing Bird rose, adjusting her sleeping daughter. He is chief but also man, a man who found woman worthy to stand beside him. After Singing Bird departed, Eleanor sat by her window, watching the moonlight silver the landscape as she pondered the woman's words. Had she been blind to what was developing between herself and Running Wolf, or merely unwilling to acknowledge it? The summer council arrived with delegations from distant Blackfeet bands. Eleanor watched with fascination as elaborate ceremonies welcomed the visitors, reinforcing tribal bonds through shared rituals and exchanges of gifts. Running Wolf stood at the center, commanding respect even from chiefs much older than himself. On the 3rd day, Eleanor addressed the gathered leaders as Running Wolf had requested. Speaking carefully in the Blackfeet language she had been studying diligently, she shared her observations about the children's education and her vision for preserving cultural knowledge while adding new skills. The strongest tree has both deep roots and branches reaching toward the sky, she told them, using imagery that resonated in their tradition. Your children can honor their ancestors while preparing for challenges we cannot yet imagine. The council received her words with thoughtful consideration. That evening, Running Wolf found her again at the rocky outcropping. You spoke well, he said, pride evident in his voice. Many were skeptical of white woman teacher. Now they understand why I trust you. Eleanor gazed at the sunset painting the western sky in brilliant oranges and reds. I've come to love this place, these people. She hesitated, then added softly, thank you for believing I could bridge these worlds. Running Wolf moved closer. When I first saw you defending Singing Bird, I recognized rare spirit. You reminded me of stories my grandmother told of strong women who helped build our nation in times past. Is that why you said I would be your queen? Eleanor asked, finally addressing the words that had hung between them since their first meeting. He smiled. Among my people, to be queen is not just to be wife of chief. It is to be voice of wisdom, protector of values, keeper of future. His gaze held hers steadily. But yes, also to be partner in all things to one who would stand beside her. Eleanor's heart quickened. Running Wolf, many moons have passed since I spoke those words, he continued. I did not know then what I know now, that your spirit matches your courage, that you would give so much to my people without seeking reward. They've given me purpose, she said simply, a home when I had none. And now I ask, will you make this home permanent? Will you stand beside me not just as teacher woman, but as my wife, my counsel, my heart? His hand reached for hers. I do not ask you to abandon your ways, but to join them with mine, as you have taught our children to do. The question hung in the air between them, momentous and yet somehow inevitable, as if their paths had been destined to converge from that first confrontation outside the trading post. Eleanor thought of her journey, from disappointed schoolteacher to trusted advisor among the Blackfeet. She thought of the children whose lives she touched daily, of Singing Bird and little Eleanor, of the bridges still needing to be built between cultures in conflict. And she thought of this remarkable man before her, who walked between worlds as she did, who had the vision to see beyond prejudice and tradition to what might be possible. Yes, she answered finally, her voice clear and certain. I will be your partner in all things. Running Wolf's smile was like the breaking of dawn. He took both her hands in his. Then let it be known that Eleanor Parker, teacher woman, has chosen to join her path with mine. Together we will show our people, both your people and mine, that different rivers can join to make stronger current. 1 month later, under a vast Montana sky, Eleanor and Running Wolf were joined in a ceremony that honored both their traditions. Mr. Finch, surprising everyone, arrived with gifts and grudging admission that he'd been wrong about Indian business. Colonel Whitman attended as an official witness, his presence symbolizing a new chapter in relations with the Army. As the celebration continued around them, Running Wolf led Eleanor to the highest point overlooking the valley. My grandmother once told me that true leaders do not seek power, but responsibility, he said. Together, we carry great responsibility, for our people, for the children, for those who will come after us. Eleanor squeezed his hand. Together, we are stronger than either of us alone. As sunset gilded the landscape in golden light, Eleanor reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to this moment. She had come west seeking purpose, and found not only her calling, but a love that transcended the boundaries between worlds. As Running Wolf's queen, his partner, his equal, she would help forge a path toward understanding in a land too often divided by fear and prejudice. Look, Running Wolf pointed to where the first evening star appeared above the mountains. New light for new beginning. Eleanor smiled, embracing both the man and the future they would build together. A light to guide us home,